students, welcome back to the class. Today I am going to explain the new chapter, that is adaptation. I hope all of you know something about this topic, adaptation. What is meant by adaptation? Some of the organisms adapted in their level. Means some of the organisms, that means fish, otherwise the birds, other the polar bear, each and everything is also adapted in their own. So what is the reason for this adapted? So today I am going to explain what is mean by adaptation and how to change some of the organisms, change their lives in different ways according to their peculiar habitat. Okay, so let's see that one. First one, definition of adaptation. All of you want to learn and understand this topic. What is mean by adaptation and what is mean by environment and what is a habitat. This type of words first you want to understand. Okay, so the first one, the adaptation means it is the ability of an organism to change for better adjustment, to the better adjustment with the environment. It is the ability of the organism to better adjustment in the environment. That is called adaptation. For example, the fish always live in the water only, so they are adapted themselves. Okay, and the polar bear always live in that polar regions. Why? That means they are adapted themselves. And desert animals like the camel is also live in the only hot regions. Hot regions only. So they are adapted. That's why they want to leave their own place. Okay, so this is the adaptation. Some of the organisms adjusted for their own in the particular climate. So a particular environment. Okay, so what is mean by environment? The environment means these are physical and the biological conditions. Physical and biological conditions in which an organism lives and with which it interacts. It's the physical and biological condition in which an organism lives. Okay, physical and biological condition. So one of the organisms want to survive in particular place. They need and their physical interaction between the environment. That means it is also need the biotic and abiotic assistance. So it is interaction between the different organisms and some other abiotic components also. For example, one of the organisms they want to survive. So that need the temperature, water, air and each and everything. That is called abiotic factors. And some these organisms also need the food and some other things and help from the other organism. So that other organism is called biotic organism. So it is the interaction between the biotic and abiotic organisms. Okay. So that's the environment. Once again repeat, the environment means it is the physical and the biological conditions in which an organism lives and with which it interacts. That is called environment. So this environment is a sum of the abiotic and biotic components. Sum of the biotic and abiotic components. So here the environment means it is not only that organism that need the non-living things also. Total is called environment. Okay. So this environment consists of lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere. Lithosphere and hydrosphere. What is mean by atmosphere? So the atmosphere means it is including the gases mantle. We are seeing the different types of gases. So those organs want to survive that need the air. So the atmosphere means full of air, different airs that help to the organism to survive. Next one, lithosphere. Lithosphere means stone and mountains. It is also part of the environment. And the hydrosphere, hydro, water. Okay, this is water, this is fully water. The water is also one of the component is important for the life, for surviving. Okay, so next one, important word, habitat. Habitat means it is a special environment of an organism. Habitat means it's a special environment of the organism in which it lives and grows. For particular organisms want to survive on live and grow, that place is called habitat. That's why I first informed to all. That means some of the polar bear always live that particular region, polar region only. That is the habitat of polar bear. Okay, so that needs the extreme cold condition for survival. And other case, in the case of fishes also, they always live in the water. So the fish always receiving the dissolved oxygen in the water. Okay, so it is a peculiar character. It is a peculiar character of these organisms. So the fish habitat means that water. And some desert animals always need the hot, means temperature, high temperature for their surviving. Okay, so these are the basic of this topic, adaptation. I hope all of you know what is meant by adaptation. The adaptation means it is the ability of the organism to adjust the environment. Otherwise, it is the characteristic of living organism. So all organisms having different characters and adaptive features. So I will give you some example of the adaptation. The first one, that's a desert rat is adapted for the desert condition or desert climatic condition than the field rat. Okay, so the field rat is needed only the optimum temperature for the surviving, but in the case of desert rabbit need the extreme temperature or extreme hot seasons. Okay, in the case of same, camel is also adapted for the hot and dry climate. So this camel is also one peculiar character. It is also consume the maximum amount of or quantity of water at a time for long time, for long duration. That means in the desert regions very less availability of the water. That's why that camel, whenever getting the enough water, they consume in the maximum for store for further, means the future life. And in the case of some other organisms, polar bear is always leave that ice below 0 degrees Celsius. So that need the extreme cold temperature. So some of the organisms having different adaptive features. So today's class I will give you explanation about this type of characteristics of the organisms. So first one, the adaptations classified into two types. The first one, short-term adaptation, and second one, long-term adaptation. So what is mean by short-term adaptation? The short-term adaptation means this is a temporary adaptation. Temporary, that means only the few days or few hours or few months only. This type of adaptation is called temporary adaptation. So I will give a simple example. We are also standing outside for getting the sunlight. Okay. So the sunlight is also our body skin help to absorb. Means our body skin having one pigment that's called melanin pigment that ready to absorb the radiation, and that radiation help to protect our tissues. Okay, that's why that we want to accept the sunlight. So this we are receiving that sunlight is a one short-term adaptation only. Short term. Whenever getting the sunlight, we are only utilize that one. So in the case of long-term adaptation means it is a permanent adaptation. That means Some of the birds having the long beak and claws. It is a lifelong, that means permanent character adaptation. That's why there's this beak and claws help to catching the food and taking the food. Okay, so there are two types of adaptation. First one, short term adaptation, and second one, long term adaptation. Okay, and mainly adaptation. Next one, adaptation in plants. The next topic, adaptation in plants. So the adaptation in plants, they are classified into three category. First one, hydrophytes, second one, mesophytes, and third one, xerophyte. So let's see what is the types of habitat in plants, what is the nature, what is the reason for separating these different adaptive natures in plants. The first one, hydrophyte. What is mean by hydrophyte? The hydrophyte means some of the plants always living in the water. So that plants is called hydrophytes. Those plants living in the water is called hydrophytes. So this hydrophytes again classified into three different types. The plants again classified into three different types. The first one, free floating plants, and rooted and free floating plants, and submerged and rooted. Okay, so let's see. First one, free floating plants. So here, Wolfia and Pistia is the best example for free floating plants. So that means, according to the water current, these plants are moving one place to other place. So these small plants, it is floating in the surface of the water. Okay, so that is called free floating plants. Example, Wolfia and Pistia. Second one, rooted and free floating. So that means these plants the roots are attached to the soil. And the leaves floating on the surface. Okay, so the best example, lotus plant and the water lily. These are best example for rooted and free floating plants. Okay, next one, submerged and rooted. So here the roots are attached to the substratum, attached to the soil, and the whole plant is also living inside the water. The leaves is not come upside, so only inside the plant. Okay, so these are example, Valsneria and Hydra is also example for submerged and rooted. And next one, mesophyte. Mesophytic plants that is living in the moderate temperature regions, otherwise moderate water requirement. So this means it's also terrestrial plants is living in the not in the wet and not dry. It is near the optimum water availability. They want to need the optimum level of waters for their better survival. Okay. And next one, xerophyte. The xerophyte planting means mainly they want to face the scarcity and hot and dry climatic conditions. So some of the plants living in some of desert, it's the best example, desert plants. Some of the plants living without water in long years. For example, cactus, opensia, this type of plants is living long. So what happens, the desert region is, all of you know, is very less availability of water. But some plants is living there in long time. Okay, so that plants is not plants is living without water is called xerophytic plants. So I hope all of you understood this topic, adaptation. The adaptation means it is a characteristic features of living organism, and the adaptation is mainly two types: short term adaptation and long term adaptation. And the adaptation in plants classified into major three types. First one, hydrophyte, mesophyte and xerophyte. So this three classification is classification that according to the water availability. Hydrophyte means they only leave the water. Mesophyte means it is near the average water areas, and xerophyte means plants will live without the water. Okay. And the hydrophytes again classified into three types: free floating, rooted and free floating, and submerged and rooted. So I hope all of you understood this topic. Adaptation in hydrophyte. Adaptation in hydrophytes. Okay. So hydrophytes plants having some of the special characters, otherwise adaptations. Today I am going to explain this adaptive natures of hydrophytes. There are few characters I am going to explain to you. The first one, submerged parts of hydrophytes. Submerged means the parts of the hydrophytes having covered with the mucilage. The mucilage means one oily substance or sticky substance present over the plant body. So this oily substance help to the plants for decay, prevent to decay. So it is very helpful for the plants to prevent decay. That's why the hydrophytes, submerged parts of the hydrophytes having mucilage. Second one, the roots. The roots of hydrophytes either absent or poorly developed roots present in the hydrophytes plants. So in the case of some poorly developed roots having the very small or very less root hairs are present. I hope all of you know what is the importance of root hairs. The normal plants having the root hairs help to absorb the water nearby the surrounding. But this type of plants, the hydrophytes always leaving the water. That's why they now need the root hairs. Okay. And next one, the stem of hydrophytes. What is the nature of hydrophytes and the stem of hydrophytes? It is a spongy type, spongy stem, and the flexible. Flexible. What is the reason for this is flexible and spongy? First one, it helps to float. Second one, the sponge having the spongy type or flexible, they are having only one reason. That means they are having number of air spaces or air cavities. That's why that's having the spongy and the floating and flexible in nature. And next one, the leaves. Almost all hydrophyte plants having thin leaf and small in size and the linear or ribbon type. So this type of plants leaves help to least resistance. So that's why they help to float the surface and live properly, survive properly. That's why the plant leaves having thin, small and linear or ribbon type. Okay. And next one, the large aquatic plants. Okay, that means lotus, etc. They are having the circular leaves, large circular leaves. So it is also float the surface of the water having oil content, oily surface. So this oily surface help to float the water and help to decay. Means prevent to decay. Oily surface. For example, in the rainy day, the water falls towards the leaf surface. What happens? That oily surface help to fall down and easy to escape the heavy weight. Okay, that's why these oils help to the plant leaves for the leaf long. And next one, the certain parts are swollen for store air. For example, one plant, okay, that's a next one. Certain parts are solent type. Okay. So they're having the large air spaces or air cavities for help to float. So for example, water hyacinth. Water hyacinth, it is one type of plant. So some part of the plant having bulged or bulge type. So this bulge type, that portion having large air space. This air space or air cavity help to float and move according to the water current. Okay. And next one, the tissues. The plant tissues, the hydrophytes, their tissues is a very specialized tissue. That means that the tissue having air and chyma. So this air and chyma help to plant float, otherwise buoyancy. This help to buoyancy. And next one, the phloem or food conducting tissue is well developed. So the hydrophytes plants in the phloem or their food conducting tissues are well developed. For what? This also store the food for the next days. Means it's next levels. That's why the phloem is very well developed or food conducting tissues are very well developed. So these are the basic features of hydrophytes, otherwise adaptation in hydrophytes. I hope all of you understood this topic. Thank you.